another. Mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
He heard the tape on the book, The Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder, and he called me and he said, Mr. Bugliosi, I want to tell you that I'm convinced now that George Bush misled Congress. He didn't mention the American people. He said, misled Congress into war. I've given several copies of the book to colleagues, including John Conyers, who called me, by the way, about a month ago or 3 weeks ago. I forget how long ago. But anyway, he said he was reading the book, and he'd gotten a copy of the book. And he said that, where am I here on this story here? I'm talking about this Republican congressman. He said he's given them a copy of the book, asked them to read it, and told them, read the book, we were lied to. He felt very bad himself that he was susceptible to that lie, and I told him, Congressman, do not feel that way. You were not, as he learned in the book, you were not given the information that you were supposed to be given. Now, what is that information? Well, Bush, on the evening of October the 7th, 2002, from Cincinnati, Ohio, this was his first reference to Hussein in Iraq being a threat to the country. He told the nation that that Hussein was an imminent threat to the security of this country, either by his attacking us with weapons of mass destruction or giving those weapons to a terrorist group to attack us. And he said this attack can happen, quote, on any given day, unquote, meaning the threat was imminent. The big problem for George Bush is that the evidence shows that what he told the American people was the exact opposite of what his own CIA had told him just 6 days earlier in a classified October 1st report, that Hussein was not an imminent threat. Now we get into the issue of deletions, and it gets worse. October the 4th, and I told Congress this, and they were taking notes, it looked like to me. If they weren't taking notes, they were certainly listening very intently. In fact, Conyers, the fellow to his left, the Republican congressman, literally tried to shut me down, and he made this remark.
Lamar Smith.
Told, he said, I, not referring to me, but he said, I'm about to have an aneurysm. Now, I don't know if that was a Freudian slip or what have you, but I told Congress that in this October 4th unclassified version of the classified report, it was called the White Paper. This is what the Bush administration did. They had an unclassified summary version of the October 1st report to give to Congress and the American people. And in this unclassified version, the conclusion of U.S. intelligence, and we're talking about 16 U.S. intelligence agencies led by the CIA, the conclusion of U.S. intelligence that Hussein was not an imminent threat to the security of this country was completely deleted. Every single one of those all-important words was taken out, so Congress never saw that. And I was telling this congressman, as he learned from the book, you never saw that. I can't tell you how serious this is.
For those that don't understand, they premeditatedly edited the 16 agencies' reports, created a fraud, and then put it forward as 16 unanimous agencies saying he is a threat when they said he isn't an imminent threat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The consensus of 16 U.S. intelligence agencies was that Hussein was not an imminent threat to security of this country, but the White Paper that was given to Congress just 7 days before Congress voted on whether to authorize George Bush to go to war, October 11th, did not contain that statement. It did not contain several other things, and when we get back, I'd like to talk to you about several other things that were not.
Absolutely. Vincent Bugliosi is our guest, the famed prosecutor. He says he's got the goods. George Bush is a mass murderer. That's the facts. We'll be right back.
Man thinks 'cause he rules it us, he can do with it as he pleases.
Famed prosecutor of the Manson family and many other famous cases, best-selling author. Vincent Bugliosi is our guest the rest of the hour. We're going to open the phones up about the impeachment hearings last week. about where all this is going. I also want to ask him later, is he fearing for his safety going up against this mafia, and has he gotten any threats? But continuing with the absolute evidence that, I mean, you use the number of 100,000 dead in Iraq, but most of the big the Lancet study and other international respected groups who are nonpartisan have said that it's closer to 1 million now. I mean, 2.5 years ago it was 600,000+ dead. But being conservative, 100,000 dead in Iraq. I mean, this is murder. This is premeditated. Please continue.
Of course, but by the way, Alex, in my endnote, a lot of times people don't read endnotes, but my endnotes are a little different than a lot of people. But some of my endnotes go on for 20, 30 pages. In my book on the Kennedy assassination, I have an endnote that goes on for 60 pages, I think, with about 30 footnotes. I'm not dropping names here, but Johnny Carson said, Vince, I read all your endnotes. But the only reason I mention that now is I do mention what you say about the estimates being as high as 1 million, and that was about a year ago. So I'm using a very conservative number in the main text of 100,000. Summarizing what I'm saying up to where we left off, we have Bush then telling the nation on October the 7th that Hussein was an imminent threat to security of this country, and he was telling millions of unsuspecting Americans the exact opposite of what his own CIA had told them just 6 days earlier, that Hussein was not an imminent threat. And then I was pointing out to you that on October the 4th, the Bush administration put out an unclassified summary version of this classified report so they could give it to Congress and the American people. And this report was called the White Paper. And in that White Paper, the main conclusion of the October 1st classified report that Hussein was not an imminent threat was completely deleted. So Congress and the American people did not see that. There were two other things in that classified report that Congress and the American people never saw, and the Republican congressman saw it for the first time in the book. One, the conclusion, it was an erroneous conclusion that Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. We subsequently learned that they were all destroyed in 1991 at the end of the Persian Gulf War. That conclusion was stated in the classified report as an opinion with the words, we assess that, or we judge that Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. The White Report, the White Paper, the words we judge that, we assess that were deleted, and that opinion was stated as a fact. The words were Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. Also, there were several very important dissents in the area of nuclear weapons in the classified report. All of those dissents were deleted from the White Paper. This is extremely powerful evidence that Bush took this nation to war knowingly and deliberately on a lie, under false pretenses. And therefore, under the law, he's guilty of murder for the deaths of over 4,000 young American soldiers who have died so far fighting his war, not your war, Alex, or my war, or America's war, but his war. One of the key issues that I knew would come up if there's going to be a prosecution, and there very well could be after he leaves office, right now he has temporary immunity, is whether there's jurisdiction to prosecute George Bush. And I spent a great number of hours at the LA County Law Library and the Ninth Circuit Library trying to establish jurisdiction. I was unable to establish jurisdiction for the well over 100,000 innocent Iraqi men, women, children, and babies who have died in his war. Bush is guilty of those murders, but I couldn't establish jurisdiction for them. But I was able to establish jurisdiction to prosecute Bush for the murder of the over 4,000 young American soldiers. And I established jurisdiction for the Attorney General in Washington, D.C., acting through his Department of Justice. We're only talking really about one prosecutor there. There's 93 U.S. attorneys around the country, but they're not going to bring an action against Bush without the consent of their boss. But on a state level, I established jurisdiction for the Attorney General, Alex, in each of the 50 states, plus the approximately 950 district attorneys in counties within those states, to prosecute Bush for the murder of any soldier or soldiers from their state or county who died fighting Bush's war in Iraq. So with over or approximately 1,000 prosecutors out there in this land of ours, and with all the evidence of guilt that I present in my book, The Prosecution of George Bush for Murder, I don't think it's unreasonable to believe, Alex, that there's at least one prosecutor out there that's courageous enough to step forward, maybe there's many more, step forward and say, this is the United States of America. In America, no man is above the law. The evidence of Bush's guilt is clear, so I'm going to go after him. And when we talk about 1,000 prosecutors. Before Bush passes away, that number may go up to 7,000 or 8,000 prosecutors because there's no statute of limitations for the crime of murder. You know, Pinochet down in Chile, 33 years later, they brought murder charges against him.
Stay there, Vincent Bugliosi. I want to talk about what's happening now. They're cornered rats. They need a new war. If getting in the mind of the criminals, what do you think they're planning to do to stop your investigation and others' investigations?